a system with 4 compressors. The system has a thermostatic control that would ramp down or up the compressors as it relates to the building load. Okay? The other thing too is that there are central air conditioning systems that can ramp down to 10%. So if the load becomes 10%, or occupancy becomes 10%, related electricity consumption will go down to that 10% level too, and rise to 100% based on occupancy. So that is all taken care of by the central system.
And do you think that safety and quality considerations might have an impact in the use of the type of
not in that particular instance, because I observed that the LPG burner, even the one that is set aside, that has the safety components, right? The safety valve that if the gas goes off, or if the flame goes off, then there's a safety device that shuts down gas supply and so forth. So those safety issues were dealt with. Pardon me? Quality, no, because the temperature conditions, they were able to adjust those manually and effectively as well. All right, so that's, any other question? Fine, thank you very much. And I was begging for questions, but you know, I'd now like to invite Mr. Stanley Smelly to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stanley Smelly from the University of the West Indies, Mona campus, as Mr. Hunt just said. I'll just say a few more things about myself before I begin the presentation, because it will help you to focus the context in which I'll present it. I'm just completing my master's degree in sustainable energy management strategies. A master's degree mainly in research and MPhil. And as a result of that, you know, it has to be grounded in theory, but you'll be contributing something new or novel to what actually currently exists. And so a large part of that master's requires processing a lot of data, original data, so you can back up what you're saying. And it is in that context I will present what we've been able to accomplish at the University of the West Indies, Mona campus. We have the Energy Conservation Project Office called the ECPO. It's actually a unit of the campus bursary, where our mandate is basically to try as best as possible to help to reduce the utility bills. That includes water and electricity. There's telephone, etc., but the main ones, water and electricity. And so it is the campus bursar, Mrs. Elaine Robinson, that spearheaded the creation of this unit within her office. And the University of the West Indies campus is on 653 acres of land. It's a very large facility. And by being so large, it has buildings of many different types. For example, there are banks, there are several commercial activities, restaurants, there are several lecture theaters, there are administrative offices, sporting complex, you name it. It's like an entire community, or if you want to consider it a country for that matter, within itself. There's also a hospital. And so all the measures that we seek to implement, it has to be multifaceted. It has to be able to have impact on various types of usage, etc. It's not just about a classroom with students. And so in order for us to really target the energy consumption on campus, particularly electricity, we had to start by doing an energy audit. And that's how our relationship with Mr. Horton began many years ago, sometime in 05. And from that, Mr. Horton's company, Caribbean Esco, was able to show us that 46% of our electricity was being used by air conditioning, 29% lighting, and you can see the breakdown for other areas. And so we decided to respond to that audit by trying to implement various measures that will help us to better manage what's going on in those areas. And so, as you see, the ECPO is in the middle, and we interact with many different departments, persons in terms of vendors. We have consultants. In the case of Caribbean ESCO, there are energy consultants. We also have management consultants to manage the various projects because it's a very large campus. And so in order to get the most out of each project, in terms of reducing costs and ensuring that everything is properly streamlined, you need skills from various areas. Again, we have to do a lot of evaluation because the campus doesn't have a lot of money. And so if somebody comes to you and say, you spend $1 million here and you save that $1 million within a year and from their savings, it's not enough to just say it. And another reason for that is that we're a university. You just take things as people say it. You want to know for yourself. And so we do our own reporting, our own evaluation, and that helps to inform what we do. We have our own inventory, and as I go further, I will explain more about that. And so this chart just seeks to give an idea of what management on campus is like. From the energy audits, we identified what I call energy conservation measures, and I break them down for this purpose into energy conservation opportunities, social marketing opportunities, renewable energy technologies. This presentation is really about electricity, but there could also be water conservation opportunities as well. Now, as we sought to implement these various measures, from Caribbean ESCO, we got a long list of various energy conservation opportunities we could implement. Excuse me. And each energy conservation opportunity had with it the relative cost, payback, as well as the impact it's expected to have. And so we are able to use that information and determine, which one should we try first, because we don't have all the money and we don't have all the resources to do everything. So based on that strategy, we decided to go through and select these 3 for energy conservation. The first one is improve AC unit energy efficiency ratio. Mr. Horton spoke to that at length. This was one of Caribbean ESCO's recommendation. On campus, we have many AC units. Just off my head, we have roughly 3,000 tons of cooling, and of that, maybe about 450 tons of that is central chillers, and the remaining amount is between mini splits and window units. So we decided to just take off a small amount, being 646 mini split units. That's a small amount to us. And we decided to try out one of the projects that Mr. Hart mentioned. That's the one about retrofitting your AC units. So that's what the first project is about. And in addition to that, we wanted to optimize our chiller utilization. I mentioned that we have about 450 tons, but most of these chillers come with additional capacity. In the event that one condenser goes bad, the other one chip in, and they're usually oversized as well. And sometimes you'd have a chiller unit near to an area that have 10 mini splits. Perhaps we could share and stuff like that. So we sought to see where we could optimize. In addition to that, there's a lot of expansion activities going on campus right now. Particularly, they're constructing a 6-story building for the Faculty of Medical Sciences. The idea is to really make it become an international institution in that sense. So anyone from anywhere can come to UA Med School because it's rated among the best in the world. But as it is right now, capacity is just not there. So expansion will allow us to do that. So that's the idea behind it. But that building alone, being 6 stories and all the magnificent things entailed in it, will add about another 1,200 to 1,400 tons alone. So we're not talking about a small amount of cooling here. I mentioned a while ago that we're about 3,000 tons in all, and 1 building alone is going to add a third of that. So part of what our office does is that we intervene from the early stages wherever we can to ensure that new constructions, renovations, etc., implement efficient measures. And in other cases where there are existing facilities, then we'll do retrofit exercises. Some of what I'll show you is based on retrofit. But in terms of new installations, they actually come to be more efficient. When you look at the relative size and the usage, you can be able to measure to see that it's actually more efficient. And so that's where the second bulletin point on ECA number 1, that's where the service park comes in. There's an idea to construct a central area that has a huge cooling capacity rather. And we utilize some of the latest technology, some of which was introduced by Mr. Hartner as well, like thermal energy storage that is